Hey, Western Nebraska, this is Marcy Oakey, field agronomist for Beck's Hybrids, and here are my 3 tips to help us better manage our alfalfa acre. So tip number 1 would be to assess your older stands. So when we think about the life cycle of our alfalfa crop, really you get the most productivity out of those first 3 years or so, and then you kind of start the decline. So when we're looking at an established stand and trying to decide if we should replace it or not, we want to have at least 5 to 10 plants per square foot. If you're dipping below that 5 level, it could be a good candidate to replace. A more accurate method would be to count stems. So the goal is to have greater than 50 to 55 stems per square foot. Again, if you're dipping below that, we may want to consider replacing the stand. Another thing that I like to check is the crown health. So dig up a plant and then take a knife and split that crown. Healthy roots should be white or off-white and firm. If you're seeing a lot of discoloration, this could indicate some crown rot, and that can greatly impact your productivity of the stand, as well as its ability to successfully overwinter. So remember that if we do decide to tear up the stand, we need to wait at least 1 year before reseeding. So tip number 2 would be to check your fertility levels. So it's important that we need to remember that when we're removing the hay from the field, we're also mining out our soil nutrients. So every ton of hay that's removed, we're removing about 15 pounds of phosphorus and 60 pounds of potassium. Okay, so we're not too late to pull a soil sample. So if you haven't done that already, go out and pull a 6 to 8 inch soil sample. That would be adequate to make a nutrient management program. Okay, the 3 things that I'm looking at when I look at that test result are pH, phosphorus, and potassium. So for my guys that are on a little bit more of an acidic soil, we wanted to make sure that our pH is above 6.5 to 7. Broadcast applications for fertilizer work really well because there's lots of fine roots near the soil surface. Okay, tip number 3 would be for my guys that are going to put a new seeding in this spring. We want to make sure that we're preparing a firm seed bed. So when I see issues with stand establishment, most of the time it has to do with this. We need to make sure that we're giving that seed really good seed to soil contact, and we do that by preparing a firm seed bed. A good rule of thumb is that we should be able to bounce a basketball on that seed bed. Okay, so those are my 3 tips to help us better manage our alfalfa. But one more tip for you, just because I can't help myself. I've been hearing reports across Western Nebraska that some Army cutworm feeding has begun. Okay, so when you're going out to assess your established stands, flip over some of those dirt clods, look closely at the crown for those Army cutworms to make the decision or not if you need to do an insecticide application. So again, my 3 tips to help us better manage our alfalfa. Number 1, assess your older stands. We want to make sure that in a square foot, we have at least 5 to 10 plants or greater than 55 stems. Okay, number 2, check your fertility levels. Okay, we want to pay close attention to what our pH levels are, as well as phosphorus and potassium. And then number 3, if we're going to seed this spring, make sure that we're preparing a nice firm seed bed. If you haven't seen it already, one of my colleagues wrote a really great article about spring forage management in this month's Crop Talk. So check that out. And then, as always, if you have other thoughts or questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the field.